Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not telling my ex I got pregnant? I, 28 female, was with my ex-husband for about 6 years. During this time, we were trying for a baby, but had no success. About 4 years into our marriage had a rough patch. My ex had stress at work and slept with his coworker to relieve it. He confessed to me rather quickly, and a week later they sat me down and told me they were expecting a child. I was an idiot back then, and so I felt like I should forgive him because I truly believed he loved me and I thought I had no one. It wasn't. My ex's family treated me like their own, but my ex's supposed daughter was the apple of their eye. As a result of that, my ex's coworker was a frequent presence in our lives. They felt like they had to include the mom of their grandchild for everything too, and she made her way into every family picture and memory. It didn't help that I suspected that the coworker had feelings for my ex and flirted with him when she could. People thought that she was my ex's wife constantly, and I finally had enough during the baby girl's first birthday party when I was told to take a picture of my ex, his mistress, his daughter, and his parents, and it didn't include me. It hit me that I was now treated as the other woman, and I realized that I deserved more than this hogwash. I filed for divorce a few months later and left. It was the hardest time of my life, but I ended up getting a promotion at work and met this sweet, wonderful guy. Fast forward to now. Me and my boyfriend are madly in love, and I gave birth to an adorable baby girl that I considered a miracle baby. I got pregnant with my boyfriend like 3 months after dating him, and I thought that it was strange that this could happen since my previous failed attempts with ex, and had thought that I was the infertile one. It crossed my mind then that maybe he was the infertile one, and he only believed the mistress was pregnant with his child because they were having an affair. I didn't say anything, though, because it was not my place anymore. However, my boyfriend was so happy about my daughter's birth and posted it on Facebook and tagged me in the post. I was still friends with my ex's sister-in-law on Facebook, and she saw the post. She called me up and said that she was hurt that I didn't let her know that I could actually get pregnant, and the lack of a child during my first marriage could be my ex's fault. He took a paternity test. The poor baby girl was never my ex's. The coworker apparently was dating this terrible guy during the time she slept with my ex and didn't know who the child's father was, so she just strung my ex along because she had feelings for him and thought he'd be the best father for her child. Now my ex blames me for not telling him that I was pregnant way before and him having to father this girl. He's doing pretty bad now, and I can't help but feel guilty like I should have told him. A friend of mine had this great response to situations like this. Not my circus, not my clowns. You washed your hands of this. They made you feel like dirt. They didn't include you in anything. You divorced. You met someone else. You got pregnant with them. Not their problem. Not their business anymore. Why was someone else tagging your daughter on Facebook? Or even an announcement? What business is it of theirs? None. None. Story 2. A coworker was eating people's lunches, so I poisoned them and got them fired. So I like to bring my own food into the office, and we have a fridge to put things into, and I have my food in tubs with my name on them. A coworker would sometimes not see people's names on food and think it was theirs, so would heat it up and eat it, and then apologize. They did this enough for it to be an annoyance, but not enough for our employers to really care. This has been happening with my food for once or twice a month. Last month, I had enough, and I like spicy food. But don't bring it into the office, as sometimes I'll let people try some of my food and my cooking. I ordered a bag of ghost chili peppers and put the full bag into a pot of chili that would last for several days. I took this into the office and had it for lunch every day. Midweek, my lunch went missing. and I was waiting for the person who was stealing my lunch to get a shock when they ate my lunch. What happened in reality was someone got sent home sick, and the next day they were off, and I was told they went to the doctors for stomach pains. 2 weeks went by, and the coworker who was off refused to talk about it and said he was involved, so I knew they were going to try to get me fired. I went home and ordered another bag of ghost chilies and made another batch of my chili, this time with only one chili in a single tub. I put this in the freezer, and the following Monday I was told I had an HR meeting that day. I refused and said they needed to give me 24 hours to find someone to come into the meeting with me, and the next day I had my manager come into the meeting and bring in my, now heated, ghost chili-infused chili. The long and short of it was I was told I could be fired for trying to poison the person who was stealing my lunch, and I asked if they admitted to stealing people's lunch, which they did. I then said, I have a batch of the chili in question with me, and I like spicy food. My liking spicy food shouldn't stop me from having it at work since it doesn't smell when heated, like fish. And my manager agreed it was on the person who took my lunch without knowing how spicy it was, and I should not be held liable if they eat something of someone else's that doesn't agree with them. My manager and I then ate some of the chili and offered it to the other people in the meeting, some of whom tried it and agreed that while it was spicy, it was clearly what I liked, as I was fine with eating it. The meeting ended and nothing happened. I wasn't taken into another meeting, and my lunch wasn't taken anymore. But the person who had stolen our lunch got a slap on the wrist and was allowed to stay at work. Lunches started going missing again, so my manager went to HR to say that lunches were going missing, and he knew who was taking it and had proof this time. And when they asked me for the proof, he presented the meeting record with the line highlighted where they admitted they had stolen lunch and the line where HR had said this was not what the meeting was about. They were fired the next day for theft of property and told they would not be given a reference. Imagine getting punished for reacting to the crime of someone else, and that person getting a slap on the wrist and being able to stay at work. Great way to retaliate. Not your fault. They admitted it. They had proof, and the manager was able to use that printed proof to finally get this person away from stealing people's lunches, which is awful. You don't do that. You don't take someone else's stuff. Maybe they have dietary needs. You don't know, and you don't know what they're eating either. Story 3. Neighbors suddenly became silent at nights after unintentionally showing them the taste of their own medicine. So I was living in an apartment, having a neighbor on the right and one on top. Both neighbors had kids that made a lot of noise during the day and night. I didn't really have a problem with noises at day. There were kids, and it was understandable. But really, who the hell runs and screams at 3 a.m.? So several times I wrote in the building WhatsApp group that please keep your children quiet at night, as I and everyone else needs to sleep and wake up early. I got no answer, or if it did, it was their parents telling them that they're kids and they will try but can't promise anything. Fast forward to my birthday. One of my friends gave me this amazing sound bar, and when I got home, I was too excited to hear some music from it. It was like 12 a.m., and I really wasn't thinking about any revenge or anything. Just wanted to try this new soundbar and didn't notice it's too late. I play my rock playlist with a high volume, and meanwhile on my PC trying to figure out its features. At around 2:30 a.m., the same neighbor, top floor, came and knocked on my door. It was then, before opening the door, that I realized what time it was. I opened the door and saw it's him trying to ask to keep it quiet. Before he started speaking, I said, "Sorry, I didn't notice the time," and turned it off. Didn't mention his kids or anything. He appreciated it and went. From that day, none of those two neighbors' kids made any noise at night. not a single day. Like, their parents had all control over the kids to keep them quiet at night, but didn't feel it necessary until they felt the other neighbors could also make midnight noises. Only if I knew this earlier, I would have bought that soundbar way earlier. Yeah, unintentional pro-revenge. Just one taste of their own medicine. Just one taste of, oh, that's what it sounds like. And I think that just says something to the neighbors. Yeah, they were a bit negligent, but they found the error of their ways and they were able to change. Great. That's what we as humans do. Awesome. Story 4. Am I the a-hole for moving to a hotel because my wife's family insisted I sleep on the couch? My wife and I got married last summer. Her family lives across the country from us, so up until this point, I had never actually visited them. But I had met them a handful of times, and we always got along fine. They invited us to come visit and stay with them for a few days, and we took them up on the offer. We flew in yesterday, and everything went well. Her dad and I watched football while she caught up with her mom and sisters, and then we had a really nice dinner. But things went south at the end of the night when it was made clear that they didn't want me sharing a bed with my wife while in their home, and that they expected me to sleep on the couch. I honestly thought they were joking at first, but they insisted we sleep separately. I had a problem with the implication that I shouldn't be allowed to sleep next to my wife, and I also have a bad back and the couch did not look the least bit comfortable. They don't have a guest room. After arguing back and forth for a bit, I decided to leave and book a hotel. I told my wife she didn't have to come with me. She chose to stay, and I said I'd come back the next day. I went off to a Marriott about 10 miles away. Is it 10 miles or 10 meters? Probably 10 miles, and got a good night's sleep, trying not to let the whole situation bother me. This morning, I called my wife asking when I should come by. She told me her parents want me to apologize for leaving the way I did. I told her that I'm willing to apologize to keep the peace, but they need to acknowledge that it wasn't appropriate to insist I can't share a bed with my own wife. She said she'd talk to them and call me back. About 10 minutes later, I hear back from her, and she tells me that not only will they not apologize for it, they're now insisting I need to come back and stay on the couch for the rest of our visit, and if I don't agree to it, I'm not welcome back in the house. I'm pretty livid at this point. I told her that there's absolutely no chance that I will do that, and I'm no longer willing to offer any sort of apology. My wife's sisters are now bothering me, saying this is just the way their parents are, that my wife is very upset, and that I need to just give in and stay on the couch for the rest of the trip before this turns into some sort of family feud. From my perspective, I don't care what they think, and I'm willing to treat the rest of the trip as a solo vacation, go sightseeing, and meet my wife at the airport at the end of the week. Am I the a-hole? No. You want to sleep with your wife? You want to be in your bed with your wife? What's the point in getting married? I mean, I would hate to think of what this family does if they invited someone over who was engaged to one of their family. Do they make them sleep in a doghouse? Do they set up a hammock in the back of the backyard? It just really doesn't make sense. I think part of it is just because it was just sprung on them. He was not made aware of this ahead of time. Maybe there could have been some sort of compromise, or there could have been something avoided if he'd had known about this ahead of time. But I think yes, it's their house, but it's unreasonable. Do the heads of the household not sleep together? Story 5. DoorDash added my business to their website without my consent and failed to mention it to me. I have a small but somewhat successful takeaway business in Australia that does pickup and delivery. For the past month or so, DoorDash drivers have been coming into my shop and picking up food for customers. We finally picked up on it, and I called the DoorDash, and to my surprise, my menu, which was incorrect with food and prices, was on there. I asked them how this happened and to take me down. They told me it was done automatically. They never asked me or informed me. I told them to take me down immediately. They said okay. About a week passes and I'm still getting DoorDashers, more and more frequently. I call them again, and this time they try to argue with me, saying that they're doing me a favor, insisting I stay with them. I explain I'm losing money with them because instead of people paying me a delivery fee for my own drivers to deliver the food, they're paying DoorDash instead. They tried to plead with me to stay. I said no, and even now I'm only temporarily removed from their website, 2 weeks. Am I entitled to compensation here or anything? I feel like I've been wronged. I don't want another business making money off my success. Yep, this is part of this business, with Uber and with DoorDash and just automatically adding people and then just trying to gaslight you into thinking you're making money. Not a lawyer, but it's probably going to have to be that way, and there's just no way to opt out. I mean, this ends up, I don't know if there are any other lawsuits that have dealt with this issue before. It kind of feels like there should be, as long as DoorDash has been around or some other delivery business. So is there? You tell me in the comments.
Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 6. Reimburse me or the police will get involved. Okay then, let's get the police involved. So I work in customer support for a mobile network provider. The way our company works is that after training, you enter a 1-month testing period where you answer phone calls under close supervision. At the end of the testing period, they either let you go or transfer you to a permanent position on one of the teams. I was a few days away from the end of the testing period when I got one heck of a phone call. I spent more than an hour on that one. It hurt my final score at the end of the month. The customer told a tall tale about when she was trying to pay her debt to the company, she racked hundreds of shekels worth of debt in unincluded uses. The sales representative was rude to her and refused to let her pay, so she took a picture of him and left. The reason the call took so long is because she kept telling the story out of order, adding and changing details and going on tangents and rants. It was very difficult to get the story straight. I felt like a detective trying to piece together the clues into what actually happened. Every time I read the story back to her chronologically, she added or changed something in the middle or went on a tangent about how she's a polite British woman and we shouldn't hire people like that representative to represent our company. Eventually, I got her to settle down on a version of what happened. I looked through the records and saw, according to the representative, who was a lot more concise than her, she was the one being rude, yelling at him in English, a language he barely spoke, and taking his picture without his consent. I didn't tell her that. I just politely instructed her on how to pay her debt via the phone. She sounded nervous. I told her that until the debt is paid, I can't make the changes in the account, including adding a report. She reluctantly gave me her credit card details, and the debt was paid in full. I reported on what she told me and moved it along to my supervisors. A few days later, my testing period was over, and despite that tragedy of a call, I aced it and got transferred to the illustrious email department, which is what I wanted. It's much more chill here, and I can work at my own pace, not having to rely on the customer or the supervisor to work faster. Also, I could take breaks whenever I felt like it. Everything is fine for a couple of weeks until I receive a new email telling a familiar tale. It was an enraged recounting of the same story I heard on the phone, except much more elaborate, with details I never heard before, such as the involvement of another person, or that the representative assaulted the customer by trying to impede her exit from the store. The customer complained that she'd been cheated and expected the representative to be fired, but she saw him again at the store and was outraged. She was under the impression that paying her debt meant we would listen to her and fire the representative. The email ends with the following demands: fire the representative, reimburse her for the money we stole from her under false pretenses, apologize to her in the form of extra compensation and a personal phone call from a high-ranking manager. If we do not comply, the police will be involved. So I complied, with the second part, and we got the police involved. You see, while reading the email, I noticed that the address she emailed us from had a different surname than her account, or the credit card information she provided. And lo and behold, the email was actually her real name, while the other details were fake. Turns out she was indeed a polite British woman, a British woman overstaying her visa for over a year that was now using a fake identity in Israel. How's that for false pretenses? Shrew. As we discovered later, she was also wanted for numerous accounts of fraud where she didn't pay for services or claimed compensation for stories that later turned out to be false, just like she tried to do with us. We called the police, but they couldn't find her since the physical address she registered on our site was also fake. So we called her back to the store to apologize personally. She gladly obliged. The police were waiting for her. Neither I nor the representative she implicated were there that day, unfortunately, so we didn't get to see the look on her face. She was fined a hefty amount and then deported back to the UK. Oh my goodness, how was this supposed to work? She must have been getting away with this for so long she thought she was bulletproof. It turns out she was not. And my goodness, that just really came back to famously bite her in the butt. And she was in such a glass house she didn't realize there were people waiting with rocks. Story 7. I made my dad choose between me and his new family. My father, 52, and I, 25 female, along with my 3-year-old Cocker Spaniel Moxie, live in my mom's ancestral house that I inherited, along with other assets when she passed when I was 16 due to cancer. My father got married to his high school sweetheart a few months ago while he was on a trip with his friends. Apparently, they've been in contact for almost 2 years now. I was shocked, but it's his life, and if he's happy, then I'm okay with it. They moved in a week after the small wedding that I wasn't even invited to since I had no idea that they were even dating or that he was dating. She, my dad's wife, that we'll call Steph, 51, came with baggage. I mean, twin stepsisters, 20 female, Lizzie and Lexi, fake names, and their 2 chihuahuas, Gucci and Hermé. They go to the state college nearby and thought that it would save them money if they live here instead of paying rent, etc. My dad asked if it was okay, and he also stated that the house is big enough for us, 7 bedrooms, 8.5 baths, a basement, and a huge yard with a pool. To make my dad happy, I said yes. Big mistake. First issue was the argument of me moving to a smaller room since my room has the second biggest closet out of all the rooms in the house. She needed it to store all her luxury bags and clothes, etc. I said no. I told her it's been my room since I can remember, and she's not making me move when it's my house. My dad compromised with her that he'll give his side of the closet to her while his things are in the other room. Second issue, the twins have this habit of barging into people's rooms without knocking, and that includes my office, currently working from home due to COVID. Lexi walked in one time wearing a bikini looking for something while I was in the middle of a business meeting. She literally walked behind me where everyone could see her. I was ticked off and embarrassed. Third, their dogs are not potty trained and would leave poops and pee around the house, and the twins wouldn't even clean up after them. They're also very aggressive towards Moxie. I found Moxie one time with a scratch on her left eye where the other 2 dogs would usually nip at when they get the chance. Fourth, all the family photos in the house were removed and put in the attic without my approval. That includes my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my mother's family photo, my family photo, my baby pictures, etc. I took my time to put them all back to where they belonged. This happened a few times. 2 days ago, Steph did it again, but this time replaced them with her pictures, the twins and her family, etc. Steph and I had a heated argument about it. I told her that she can't do anything regarding the decorations, etc. in my house without my approval, and that her daughters should also learn how to knock on doors and have their dogs potty trained. She said that they can do whatever they want in her house and that she'll be making up house rules that we will all follow since she thinks I'm such a wild animal doing whatever I want, and that I was not raised properly due to having a bad, useless mother. Oh no. I was livid. That's an understatement. I told her that she can pack her things along with her twins because I'm kicking her out. She said that I have no right to kick them out of her house. I told her, and I quote, "Lady, you are living under my roof. This is my house. I inherited it from my mother, and right now your twins, and your dogs are trespassing. Get out before I call the cops." My dad got home early that day after Steph told him what happened. I told him my side of the story. He said that they're still getting used to the house and the move here was difficult for them. I told them all about the issues surrounding them, but he kept insisting that it's going to get better and that to just give them some time. I told him I put up with all their stuff and I've had enough. Enough is enough. He was defending them more, taking their side, so I told him that he can either move out with them or stay, and that he has until the end of the week. Did I do the right thing here? Making my dad choose between me and his new family? I literally gave them a chance, and I've put up with so much of their stuff for the past few months. What she said about my mother was my breaking point. There's no way that she'll disrespect her in the house where she grew up in, where I grew up in. Yeah, you'd better nip that in the bud right now, because this woman is looking to take over. She thinks this is her house. It is not. It is not. And you were right to claim your property, because it would be a lot harder to get them out the longer they stay. And you also better have your documents in order, because you're probably going to have to prove to the police that this is your place. And I'm sure you have that stuff set up, right? Hopefully you don't have to put up with this any longer. Besides, this guy didn't even let you know he was getting married. And now he's taking their side? It's kind of clear whose side he's on. And it's kind of clear that he was trying to convince you to stay, to let them stay. And he's trying to gaslight you into some stuff. Kick him out now. Get him out. You don't need that in your house. You don't need toxicity in your own home.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.